Okay, so welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to teach you this evening. My name's Anita Thompson, and for those that are new, welcome, and everyone else, welcome back. So we are going to be creating this vintage gramophone, um, which interestingly enough, my neighbor has one. She is 94 years old and she has a gramophone and I love it. So it inspired me to create this program.
Does she use
Um,
it?
she does. She does.
Wow.
She just showed me last week was actually her birthday. Her 90, let me see, she's 94. It was her 94th birthday. And she has these small I'm trying to remember what they're called, but they're like small records. And she still plays them. They're from the 1930s. And I think that's so cool. Yeah, if you know, I will try to get a picture of some of them and then I'll include that in the newsletter on Monday because I know that I did take pictures of them at some point. So I'll look through my pictures, and if not, I'll run two doors down and take a picture, and I will take a picture of her actual gramophone because it's really cool. Um, and just a little trivia for you. The gramophone was invented in 1887 by German American inventor Emil Berliner. And he patented the recording and the playing back sound. And basically, his work, which brought together developments in, I don't know what this word is, telephony. It's spelled like telephone with a Y. So I'm assuming that the maybe the way that we use the telephone, radio and synthetic materials, and he actually revolutionized the way we experience sound. So I thought that was really cool. So a little trivia for you before we start our vintage gramophone. Okay, so I'm going to move my camera a little more so you can see my other blank sheet of paper. As you can see, I'm using the bigger paper, but you can see that it will fit on a smaller piece of paper. So if you have that, that will work out just fine. Okay, so I'm going to go in very close now so that you can see the picture or the drawing here. And we are going to get started first with the top part of it. So this is more almost like a tube. So we're going to start off with a circle. And then, as you know, we add all the details on from there. I'm just trying to get the light right this evening. I feel like it's a little bit bouncing off too much. There we go. All right. So we're going to start again with a circle. You want to make sure that you have enough room and plan accordingly. And you're going to be drawing lightly, and I will be drawing darker so you can see it. So we're going to start off with our circular shape. And I'm just going to move my camera just a little bit here. So we start off with the circle. And we're going to continue with the tubular shape coming out from underneath here, like so. And that is going to wrap around like so. And just take your time with this point or with this part. And so basically, this tubular part is a bit wider as it meets with the circular part of the gramophone. So it's going to look a little something like this. It looks a little strange, but I promise it will definitely look like a gramophone when we are finished with it. Okay, so continuing onward here, we're actually going to now go into the rest of it and create the shapes so that we have the basic shapes happening. So we're going to now pull this over here and basically make what looks like a cuff over here, but basically this is part of a pipe. So we have a small half circle here, and then we have the rest of it kind of coming out and turning a little bit, like so. And then we have another circular part. And I probably should have looked up what all of these different parts were because I have no idea what to call these. So I'm just calling them parts of the gramophone. So now we're going to make another cylinder that goes around. And it's going to look a little bit more three-dimensional now. So again, just take your time so that you have a cylinder just like this that's wrapping around. And I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay. All right. So we have a lot of cylinders with this. We have another one that is flatter, and it is actually the record. So we're going to start with the outside of the record, but we're going to start about midway at this point, and we're going to create sort of a flat circle. And it's going to go around. And we're going to end up about right here. And I have to erase a little more of my tube here to make it go up a little. So you should have what looks actually like a pizza. Sort of like pizza dough. And then we're going to make that three-dimensional. And basically, we're then going to draw sort of it's kind of like, it's the side, really. And it's very thin, obviously. And then you're going to follow that around. Like so. And then the end looks like that. So I'm gonna show this up close, just so you get the idea of how it sort of ends on either side. In case you weren't sure exactly what to do with those lines. And we may make them a little bit thinner at some point. But for now, we have those shapes. Okay. And now we're going to create a box. So in this box is going to be in perspective. So basically, we're going to start here on the left, and we're going to come from underneath our record, and we're going to make a small line that's going this way. And then we're going to create a straight line right across. And we're going to stop about right here. Actually, I made mine a little too close. So I'm going to kind of stick it out a little more. And then it's going to go back like this. So this is the top part of the box of our gramophone. And then it's going to come to a point right here in the back. So like I said, we're going to be making at first a box shape. And then just like with everything, we get into the details, the nitty gritty. So now we are going to create a bit of a lip here in the front, and that's going to wrap around to the other side. I'm going to go really close so that you can really see a lot of this detail. Okay. So then we're going to make another lip. This is extending outward a little more. So it's almost going to look like steps. And that is also going to go around on the side. Okay. So we're going to continue. And now the boxy part is going to come in a little bit from where we just drew. So you're going to come down on the left, and I'm making mine a little bit bigger than my illustration on the left. And then you're also going to come down on the right. But you're going to extend the line a little bit longer. And then we are going to make the bottom part of our box meet up with that line. And then we're going to go back with our line on the other side. And then straight down. If your box looks wonky, that means that it's off in perspective, and you may have to adjust this side right here. Usually it's the bottom that's kind of wonky. I actually am going to adjust a little bit of my top part. meaning the angle as well. Oops. I think I made that a little bit too round. Okay. There we go. So you should have a basic box that is in perspective, on the side. And then we're going to draw the bottom part with the legs. And so we come right over here to this corner. And we're going to kind of make a small, almost like a little step. And we're going to do 3 of those. And then it's going to come down straight like that. So I'm going to show this up close. And basically, we're going to create straight lines. This is the detail in the wood. And we're going to follow that around, but first we come here to the corner and we make 3 more kind of bumpy lines before we head back to the rest of the box here. And just take your time. And then you're going to stagger the end of your shape there in the back before we draw the legs on. 1, 2, oops, I'm missing, here we are. I'm missing a line right here in the front. So you want to make sure to adjust all of your lines so that all 3 line up with each other. So in perspective drawing, which I believe this is probably one of, I think I've done other drawings that are sort of using perspective, but this one really uses it. It's definitely key in order to make sure your lines are straight, in the sense of going in the direction they're supposed to be, but not having them kind of wiggly. So if you need to take your time or use a ruler, you can do that as well. I always feel like I'm adjusting my lines, like they're too thick in some parts or whatever, but it's okay. All right. So now we're going to do the legs. Now, basically, so we're going to come down here and we think of them as blocks. So we're going to go a little bit here, and basically this line is perpendicular to the shape or the side that we're drawing. So your line should not be straight. Your line should not be like this. So I just have that here just so you can see. Your line should be at an angle. And then we're going to draw the first side of the leg. And the second side is underneath. the gramophone like that. And now you just drew a leg in perspective. And we're going to do the same thing to the other three that are showing. So we're going to come right here. And we're going to go down a bit and add a little bit of a line. And from there, that's where we're going to add 2 lines going either way, like so, because that is the next leg. And then we create the other sides just by making them a little bit curved, meaning the 2 lines for those are just a little bit curved, just because of the way it is designed. And now we're going to do the final leg. And basically, I like to draw a light line going back. That line is going to end up being a shadow anyway. But basically, you want to make sure that your leg ends on that line. So this is just an imaginary line that we're drawing. And then you can draw the back leg here. And another one here. But then in order to make it look 3-dimensional and like it's sitting underneath, you're going to draw a line like that. And then I'm going to erase that little imaginary line just a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to go up into the circle area up top because we've got the basics down for now. Now we haven't added the part back here. And we haven't added the crank over here. And we will be doing that at some point. But for now, we're going to come into this part here. And we're going to be making the hole for the center. And so we're going to start over here on the right side. So you want to go in a bit from your outer line. And we're going to make a curve like this. Now you want to make sure that you still have room to come out to the sides, because think of it almost like a flower, and these are sort of the petals. So we're going to start making those shapes coming from here. And then basically when we get to the round part, when we're done, that's when we're going to create these sort of bellowed shapes around. Okay. So starting here, and we're going to leave some space here. I mean, if you want, you can make it a little bit bigger with shading, just like a little bit like that. And then that way, you're going to start with the top one that's curving. And basically, you're going to go towards the outer edge, and you're going to start doing that all the way around, coming from your center. So it's kind of like a pinwheel too, I guess. Now, on this one, it actually changes a bit of direction, meaning your curve line. We were going this way, And now it's kind of changing where it's almost under. Oh, Patty's coming on. Let me move this in a little bit here. Okay. All right. So we're going to keep going. Coming from here. Curving. And then it's going to get a little longer, meaning your line. A little bit longer there. Remember to always start here in the middle. Oop, that one's a little wonky. I was kind of bending my arm at a weird angle, and that didn't exactly work for me. And then we've got one more. So you should have a shape that looks like this. And now we're going to make the ends over here more curved. So basically, you can start to make or extend your shapes, meaning your curved lines that you just did. You can start to extend those out a little bit because we're going to make this a little bigger. And then we're going to start, I like to kind of start on this one. And where each line goes, you're going to create kind of a curve. And then a little bit when it starts to go into the next curve, I kind of go a little bit in and then back out again. And you're going to do that around the whole thing. And just take your time. And so what you may end up doing is going over a little bit where the tube part is, and that's okay. And just take your time. I'm going to give you time to make sure you get it all drawn. And then obviously any lines that are sticking out beyond where your curves are, you're going to erase those. And then once you have those, you can then start to draw the inside curves. Very much mimicking the shapes that we just created. But kind of leaving a bit of a border between these inner circular shapes and the outside. And then you want to make sure that your shapes meet up with each other as you go around in a circle. If they don't, you want to adjust it and make sure they do. And then when you're done, you can erase any lines that don't make sense anymore. And I will give you time in order to do that. I'm gonna fix mine a bit. I would say this is probably the hardest part of the drawing. I think I might add one more line here. Let's see. Two. Maybe not. Just fixing my record. It's not flat enough. So I'm just kind of fixing that part. Okay. Okay, how are we all doing? Looks like everyone's still working. I see a lot of people still working, so I'll give you some more time. So good to see everybody. And I meant to say hello to the Cruz family. I have not seen you guys in such a long time. It's so nice to see your names on the screen.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How's school going?
It's good. It's been pretty busy.
Yeah, I know that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see your drawing at the end of this. Just take your time. You can keep looking back and forth, making sure everything is looking the way it should or as good as the way it should. Sure, Debbie. Yeah, you have a question. Absolutely. Oh, did you erase the straight lines on the outer rim? Um, I'm thinking you're talking about these or the straight line underneath. I'm thinking you're talking about these. Maybe.
No, actually the rim of the
Oh,
megaphone, like the speaker on the top.
oh,
Those
like,
lines.
oh, these
Mm-hmm.
little lines?
No, the straight that went up and down. Like one side it looks like they're erased. That went from the middle to the end to the
Oh,
outer
this
rim.
one here? I'm sorry. Do I have that right?
Actually,
Did you
so they're
mean?
still there. They go from the center all the way out to the outer rim.
Oh, these. You mean
Yes.
these lines?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so we haven't added those yet.
No, the outer, like you have the out, they go from the middle
Oh,
all the way to the out.
this one, the one that goes around. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm not explaining it well. It's okay. It's cool. I see it.
This one?
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So that's still there. We just haven't added any shading yet. So our next part is we're going to go back inside here. And basically, I had you kind of create kind of what looks like a slanted black hole. But now we're going to make this a little more little more flatter. So we're going to come over here to this line that we created, and we're going to go in just a little bit from the black area. And then we're going to come back and make a bump. And we're going to start to make the inside of this. So we have a bump here and then one here. And then we're going to start to fill that in a little more. And so this bump, actually these two bumps, you just created some perspective on this. And we're now going to start to add our shaded lines around. And it's going to look like this is deeper and going inward, you know, like a tube. And this is going to look like it's coming forward a little more. So we're going to start here at the bottom, and you're going to make very light shaded lines in each section. So for now, we're just making very light lines. And you're going to do that around each section. So see, really light, almost like little hairs. And they don't have to go all the way to the end as we start to go around here on the right. So I'm just following the sections, making these really little strokes that look like hair for now. That's our first layer. And then really light in this one. And this one. And we're going to start to get darker. So now we're going to start again from the inside, and we're going to start with this one. And first, what we're going to do is actually darken up each of the section lines. So starting here, I'm going to darken that up. Now, I didn't go out to this part yet. For now, we're just going to kind of darken up from here, from the center and out, but not on the outer rim. So just take your time and make each of those sections, the lines, darker. And that should really bring your gramophone into even more perspective. And then we're going to start to make it darkly shaded. So we're going to kind of go medium dark like this, staying sort of towards the center, but also expanding some of those loose strokes outward. We're going to do it on these two sections, but then we're not going to do it on these three sections to the right because the dark part is coming from this angle. And so then you're going to continue going towards the left. And remember, keep these three sections more lighter. Oh, that was not good grammar. Keep these three sections lighter, not more lighter. Sorry about that. And then you're going to start to add a little more dark at the bottom of each section. So now I'm just going to concentrate a little more shading on this one. So on these two sections. And then we'll move into the next two sections. So there's 4 sections that I'd like you to start adding more dark to towards sort of that black hole area. It's these 4 sections here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. So these 4. And then you're going to start to make that hole a little darker. And you're going to shade a little more, kind of like in a circular motion. Like right around here. And then we can now start to add a few stray lines, light lines, going out towards this last sort of rim. Just going around. And you also want to kind of bring all of your lines at the end of each section, kind of like shade a little bit so that they look a little more uniform. So just add a little more shading, maybe. Light shading. And then when you're done with that, you're going to go all around the outer rim and trace it darkly. Like so. And then you can shade inside along the inside of the edge of the rim in each section. And then anywhere else you see in this area that maybe you need to add a little more shading, you can do that. And if you have to clean up the outside, you can do that now as well, which is what I'm doing. And now just making everything look a little bit neater before we move on to the rest of our gramophone. The rest is really just shading. You've done most of the hard parts. So you should feel really good about that. Okay. You can add a little more shading on the right side of those right 3 sections if you want to add some kind of light shading. If they're looking too bright, you can add some light shading towards kind of the black hole area. Okay. So we're going to continue, and we're actually going to create the individual sections and then finish creating some more detail that we didn't add yet. For instance, right now what we want to do is we want to come here down to the back and create the holder for which the tube part is kind of balancing on. So in the back here, actually we don't want to do that too straight. So this part is going to be kind of straight, but then there's a bump like this. Here's the bump right here. Let me start to move this over so you can see. And then it's going to be pointy over here. And another bump, kind of like a knife almost. We have a round screw over here. And then because we want this to be three-dimensional, we're going to add a lip to it like this. And I'm going to show this up close. So that you can see that detail. Going to give you some time because I know that's a tricky one. We are still going to go back and make sure we have the tube part drawn a little more. So you may have to readjust that part at some point. Although we did a pretty good drawing of the shape, but there's always room to, finagle. Okay, so we're now going to come over here, and I know we still have the the handle to do, but we will get to that. So we're going to come over here and we're going to make another curve for another cuff part, a metal part that's sitting on top. So you want to extend the line. I'm going to go really close so you can see exactly what I'm doing. There we go. So see how either side is kind of extended a bit? And then I go just a little bit and fill in that line so that now it's wrapping around. And gonna make another cuff like this, but it gets a little bit smaller here at the bottom. Kind of like crescent moon shaped. And then you can erase the line that's inside there. And now you've got kind of a cuff area that's on top. And that's what we're going for with the rest of this area. And we're going to follow and make another larger cuff on top. Same idea where it's slightly above where we already drew. And then when it curves inward, we stay with this shape here of our tube. And then we have a really thin one right underneath that. And that's just following the shape, the exact shape. We have another one that's a little thicker, and this one is bulging out a little bit right here. And then that's going to follow this shape as well. And then we start to have another cuff as it's going around. So we have that little half circle. And then we can create the underside of both of these shapes. And we just created another cuff here too. And again, make sure on the top and the bottom, you kind of make these two lines like this. So I'm talking about when you go around and then you kind of make this little line here and this little line here against the pipe area part. And look at that. And then we're going to go right underneath this section, on top of it actually. And we're going to create a very small circle that's kind of circling around it. It's kind of the design. And we're going to add some dotted lines in the white part of it going around. So I'm going to show this up close. So talking about this part here. We're going to add some shading to that. But for now, we just want to get all of the other parts drawn. I'm going to fix my my line around here. And when you're sure of your lines, you can then go over them a little darker. We're also going to add the center part of our album here. And so we start off with another flat circle. And then we go around. So depending on what your shape of your album looks like, you want this part to be a flat cylinder again. And you only see two parts of it. You don't see the back of it. And then we're going to come to the front of the box area. And we're going to make a little detail here by going straight again, following the shape of our box. And we're basically going to be making a detail like this. And we're going to do the same on the other side. And we are going to make these, we're going to go around with another double line. But for now, we're making the outside part of that design. Now this one on the side, we are going to, part of it's going to be hidden, but for now we're going to make the whole shape. I'm just fixing my lines a little here so you can see them a little better. And then you're also going to make some faint lines on the inside, mimicking those. And again, this is just a detail. We do the same in the front, but I make those lines a little bit lighter. And then we're going to make the handle. So our handle, before we draw it in place over here, our handle is going to be kind of like an S shape. I'm going to just do it kind of right over here just to show you. So it's kind of going to go out like this, up, and then out again. So kind of like a wide S shape. So we're going to start that right here, right above where this detail is happening. And we're going to just make a line first. So we're going to make an S shape like this. And then we're going to make it look more three-dimensional. So you can erase around your S shape for now. So just lighten everything up just around it. The reason being because we're going to add a bit of a curve to this part. So it looks like it's coming out of the box. And I'm just going to show that up close. Kind of looks like a snake. And then you're going to make that shape three-dimensional like that. And you want to clean up your line. If there's too many lines, you want to lighten those up. And then we're going to make the handle part, which is a cylinder with a smaller kind of tube-like cylinder like this. And then a circular part on the end that we're going to draw in perspective. We're going to come back over here to the back, and we're going to add that circle and make it go around the tube shape that we just created. Let me erase this and show it to you a little better. Okay. So it's going to look like this for now. And we're going to make the end of it where that circle is, we're going to make that a little more in perspective. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to add a line. Basically, it's going to go around that circular shape like this. And then we're going to add a little bit of another circle inside. So I'm going to show that up close. I'm going to give you some extra time on this part. And all we have left is our shading. You've done the hard parts, and now is the fun part with the shading, I think. I mean, I like the drawing part too, but shading is pretty fun because it's the last part that makes it really come to life. Okay. So we're going to start with the box first, and I'm going to erase this little snake S here. We're going to start underneath the box. And we're going to start with the shading underneath. So we're going to go here in the front and we're going to shade kind of a medium gray by going across the line in the middle here between the two legs. And then kind of shading a little bit darker in between the legs and also the ones in the back. And then I like to go right underneath the legs and create a darker line. And then create some light shading beyond what we just did, because it gives it some perspective. So on this side, and then on the right side, and I'm going to make a little bit darker shading under here so that it sticks out a little bit. Now, once you do that, you want to come right underneath the legs and make that line a little darker. And then this back leg, this side, this little part, you want to make that, shade that a little darker. So this part right here. And you're going to do the same to the leg closest to us right here. So the back underneath, you shade darker. And this one in the front on the side, shade a little bit like a light gray. And the same with the leg on the back. So I'm going to show this up close just so you can see the shading. And then we're going to add some very light shading to the corner here of where it meets together, kind of just like some really light lines. And we kind of do that on this side. We're kind of just adding some really light shaded lines. I'm going to go really close so you can see those lines. Here, and then in the corner here. And then when we get to, so staying on this side, when we get to the different details in the wood, I like to go over each line and make it just a little bit darker and a little bit shade, you know, add a little bit of shade. And then up above as well. So staying on this side here, darkening up each of the sections of the wood. And then maybe shading just a little bit underneath on this side. You're going to do the same thing on the one on the side over here, except this part's shaded a little more because it's on the side. So we go to the corner again with some shaded strokes. I'm adding a little more shading on this side too. So I'm just doing really light strokes, really short strokes. And then again, when I get to this side, I make the lines darker with the wood. I also start to kind of shade on this side quite a bit more. And then I go on the handle part and I shade closest to us with a little bit of medium to dark shading there. I'm gonna lift my camera up here. As we get to the record, we outline the record. So outlining, making each of those lines a little bit darker. And in the wooden part, we shade kind of a medium to dark on the turntable part. So that whole area. But then it's a little darker in the back. So I just press my pencil with the shading just a little bit more there. And then the part that's kind of holding up the gramophone here gets a little bit darker, and then just a little bit of shading on the side. And we actually go into our album on the top, and we shade a little bit on the top on the left. It gets a little lighter, and then it gets darker again as it goes closer toward us. And then in the little lip part of it, I like to shade towards the bottom in that area. And also making sure that your line is darker again. And then our final shading on these parts. First, we come to this section and we kind of make those two kind of curved lines. And then shade a little bit at the top with some very short strokes. Continuing down the tube, we make this line darker and kind of fill it in a little bit. And then start to shade on top. But the first section, we shade a little bit darker so that it looks like there's more of a cuff. And then we shade on the two sections, these two sections, and kind of all around the rest of it on this side. So now, first we went on these two sections here, and now we bring that shading down closer to us. So it's kind of looks like this. And then our last two parts is we come around to the part where the pipe, kind of the piping is. And we're just going to add a little bit of dark shading here. And then our final shading is going to be on the inside of the pipe in each section, like right here. And we make some shaded lines, shaded strokes. Sometimes kind of going straight, and then other times kind of going in the opposite direction. So in about a minute, I would love to see what everybody's looks like. I'm going to stop the recording.